What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today I want to talk to you about SNDL. It's been a very long time since I've covered SNDL or Sundial growers. So I want to give you a good overview of what the data points is saying and what investors really need to watch for. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get right to it. So when it comes down to SNDL or Sundial, I stopped getting out and I stopped covering them around this time period. So after they did the reverse stock split and they kept delaying their earnings. And of course, earnings since then haven't been stellar by any means, but most likely the upcoming Q4 earnings for 2022 is going to be the same kind of format, just a little bit more of a wash. Of course, that's my own interpretation of that. And the fact that they haven't necessarily announced it isn't always a good sign. Keep in mind that same time period that I did say I kind of stopped covering them, they really just pushed it back. So it was actually disclosed on April the 27th, and that was very, very delayed. And I believe that they did attribute that due to the auditing agency, if I remember correctly. But again, that might be something that you need to factor in, might cause a little bit more of a tentative sell-off, especially when they do give their future guidance for 2023, for instance. That will definitely dictate whether Sundial goes up or down. Regardless of the revenue or earnings per share, it's just most likely going to follow the future guidance aspect. And surprisingly enough though, if you actually look at the volume, things have held up fairly well. So 3.5 million from Friday, 3.8 is the average. So generally speaking, it's actually doing fairly well. Same on the actual price point as well. Over the last little bit, a lot of growth stocks have been completely hammered, whereas Sundial, like I said, for the most part, is actually holding a good balance around that range. So again, that could be a very good thing to take away. And when it comes down to just going back to the earnings, definitely this is going to be a very good one to see, because it'll tell you overall if there's going to be dilution, for instance, in 2023 or potentially 2024, because based on the Q3 earnings, the last earnings that they did give, there was 329.44 million in cash equivalents and short-term investments, 663 million in long-term investments, and 259.48 million in debt. So of course that's fairly good if you want to consider that. And not only that though, they're roughly burning about 30 million from operations. So they're actually doing fairly well based on their balance sheet. So again, this is why their upcoming Q4 earnings, whenever they do announce that, that's going to be very crucial, because there's going to be a lot of individuals like myself that will take this information and determine if they are going to be doing fairly good for 2023, what is their overall multiples compared to other similar companies and various other things. But again, I think that is going to be the next big thing for Sundial. And of course, they did have news that did come out on January the 17th about another big acquisition. So they've always been fairly good for that. They've always been able to really take advantage of discounted companies during a very scary time frame. So once again, that's always a very good sign, and it does look like right here they are creating a low-cost vertically integrated Canadian company generating over $1 billion in annualized pro forma revenue. So definitely SNDL is something to really watch for if you're going to be adding for your long-term position, because short-term most likely will still continue to be very volatile. And when it comes down to it though, I think a lot more institutions are waiting for the exact same thing, whether it be legalization or some form of agreement where SNDL can fully 100% work in the States. Because as far as right now, until there is full legalization on a federal level, they're limited to doing just partnerships. So I think at that stage as well, this is where a lot of big players such as BlackRock, Vanguard will really double down on Sundial. And I do believe that they were actually in Sundial at one time, or sorry, SNDL, up until this whole reverse stock split did happen, because at that stage they came down to the wire where they might have actually been delisted. So definitely something to factor in. But as far as this, the number of options over the last little bit have kind of been mixed. So of course there's a little bit more of an underlying sentiment about it going up potentially, so that could be a good sign depending on how you interpret that. And just wanted to break that down as far as options. So when it comes down to the options, as you can see, this is a put/call ratio. So the fact that it did go up around this range in December shows that there's a lot lot more puts being purchased than calls. So clearly behind the scenes, people are very much doubtful of, for the most part, December and 2023. I'm not necessarily sure why, because at the same time, the price actually just continued to drop at that stage. So I'm not necessarily sure the breakdown of that. And while I am on Ortex, I'll just quickly give you a good update on shorts, because I think right now there was a lot of people very much in Sundial, or SNDL, sorry, that the fact that they wanted to squeeze. And short score is currently 74, utilization is 97.92. Based on Friday, shorts did return 111,000 shares, but only 6.52% is the short interest, which is a percentage of the free float. So in my own opinion, who isn't a financial advisor, I don't see Sundial ever squeezing unless something substantially changes. But for the most part, the actual price action has been holding up fairly well. Shorts clearly know that, and volume as well. So I think right now it's very stable and a potential good investment for the long term. And when it comes down to the overall buying and selling, what's been happening, this is all the transactions on the secondary market, which typical retail investors do trade on. So it's very kind of slim pickings a little bit. And keep in mind though, these are only transactions over $100,000. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. And this is all the transactions that is being done on the dark pool. And of course, dark pool is very much linked to shorting activities much of the time. So I think right now, over the next little bit, it's just going to follow the technicals, broader market, up until the earnings date, whenever that may or may not be. But as of right now, looking on the actual technicals, I do have the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Bands, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. Stochastic right now is fairly neutral at 55. No defined trend right now. Momentum number, retail investors, for the most part, haven't really been doing much. Ultimately, since around January the 10th, it's been just flat. And on the actual chart, it is struggling to get over that 50-day moving average. And generally speaking, that is a very big pivot for a lot of stocks. So the fact that it's failing to get above that could mean something, might mean nothing. Who knows? I'm not a financial advisor, like I said, but I think right now there is a lot of people just very much waiting for some good reason to buy Sundial or SNDL. I'm going to always make that error because I don't know why they changed their name, to be fully honest, but still, SNDL, I think people are just waiting for some justifiable reason for it to go up. But outside of that, though, it is technically in the higher percentile of the Bollinger Band. So it has a lot of good momentum behind the scenes in that regard. But no matter what, hopefully this was a good summary for you guys. I will definitely start to add this to the mix if you guys are very interested in that. If there is any other ticker that you guys are interested in kind of me covering, just doing quick analysis such as this, throw them in the comments below. I always greatly appreciate that. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. And with that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on SNDL.